Hi, welcome back to my webinar on 7 Habits of Highly Effective San Francisco Buyers. My name is Hanna Jung. I'm a realtor at San Francisco Modern Real Estate. Today I'm going to go over the 5th habit on reading disclosures. A lot of times buyers are overwhelmed by the pages over pages of disclosures that they have to review and sign when they submit an offer or right after the offer is accepted. Not everybody has the time to review every line of the disclosures. So today I'd like to share 3 most important disclosures that I think you must review. So first, a transfer disclosure statement, also known as TDS, it is completed by the seller showing any known updates, repairs, remodels, or even neighborhood information that they can think of. It is seller's best interest, believe it or not, to disclose everything that they can possibly think of because it can potentially be a liability issue for them. So it is a good source for a buyer to see what seller has done to the property and what seller has noticed by living in that particular property. Second disclosure you definitely want to check out is Record of Residential Building Report, otherwise known as 3R report. It is a San Francisco required report, and it shows the authorized occupancy of the property or the use of the property, whether or not it's the commercial unit, residential, or mixed. It also shows the zoning use district. In San Francisco, there's close to 50 zoning districts. So you want to know, for instance, if whether there's any height restrictions. If so, how high? If you want to know whether your view will be blocked, then you can find where the property is located at, what zone district it is, and then you can go to the city planning office to figure out what's the height limit for that particular zone. Third disclosure you want to pay attention to is natural hazard disclosure statement. Natural hazard report is a state required report, and potential buyers has to sign the receipt of acknowledgement from this report before they close the transaction. This report covers 7 basic hazard zones and what hazard the property is exposed to. Among the 7 natural hazards disclosed in the report, what you see the most in San Francisco is seismic hazard. Seismic hazard zone means that the state has determined that there is likely that the weak soil and rock exist underneath the property. If present, then that weak material may fail when the earthquake happens. So it is recommended, obviously, for the buyer of that property to contact the geologist or soil engineer to figure out whether or not, first of all, that the property is actually sitting on a weak soil. And if so, then how much it's going to cost to fix it and decide whether or not you want to fix it even. It is usually between $50,000 to $100,000 to fix or strengthen the structure. But obviously, it really depends on each situation of the property. And if you're buying a single family or a building with 4 units or less, then it is just a recommendation that you have to contact the soil engineer and figure out what you want to do. However, San Francisco City just launched last year in 2013 a new mandatory program where the owners of all the wood-framed buildings with 2 or more stories that contain 5 or more units and built prior to 1978, then the city requires the owners to have a licensed architect or engineer to confirm whether or not the building requires any retrofit. And it's a mandatory program, so if it does need some work, then in the next 7 years, the owners have to fix and strengthen the structure. It's something that the buyer should be aware of. If you happen to find a building like that and that has to follow this retrofit program, then now there's a money issue because it'll cost some money and each owner should probably chip in to fix it. And you have to figure out whether the seller is going to fix it or the buyer will. So if you happen to find a property that falls into this program, then make sure to know the scope of the work that needs to be done and if there's any assessment that are assigned to the unit that you're interested in buying. This concludes my fifth habit on reading disclosures, and I'll be back with my next video on reading the HOA documents.